Hi, welcome. This channel is dedicated to mastering the play of awakening and helping others do the same. Today's topic is two modes of existence: expansion and contraction. We're going to explore those. So, there's only two modes of existence: expansion and contraction. Everything that a human being does will fall into those two categories. So knowing that, it's a great way to look at one's life decisions and choices based on those two categories. So if you're struggling to figure out how to make a decision on something, whether you should do something or not, what choice you're going to make in some aspect of your life, it's very helpful to look at it from that perspective. Is the action that you want to take fitting into an expansion modality or a contraction modality? Let's just look a little bit further into this. Just look at things from past decisions. I think you'll see pretty quickly that decisions that you made, including my own from the past, fell into either one of those categories. But not understanding that at the time, not having that as a navigational tool, let's put it that way, it would have been very helpful if I had had that as a navigational tool to make those decisions. Because if my paradigm in life is expansion, then everything must fall into that category, the decisions and choices that I make. Or if contraction is the paradigm of my life, then it will fall into that category. But sometimes we're in both categories. We have behaviors and choices that fall into expansion and behaviors and choices that fall into contraction. Oh, let's say, for instance, you want to let's say you want to do ayahuasca, for instance. The reason I'm saying this, because I do talk to people or hear people talking about doing psychedelics. And based on my assessment of the individual and what they're saying, people largely use substances to contract. Now, they might not be aware of even why they're doing it, or that's what's about to happen. But largely it will be, if there's not a lot of awareness and understanding. And that goes for pretty much all our choices. There's so many choices that are made out of ego that just would never ever fall into the category of expansion. Unfortunately, ego is largely under a contraction. But let's say, so you make a decision, you want to do ayahuasca, but you're not that aware, you don't really know, you got a lot of issues, you just want entertainment, or you just want to escape, you think it's an escape. Anything that's an escape is a contraction. Let's say you're doing marijuana or alcohol or any kind of drugs, that's going to fall under a contraction. That goes for pretty much everything we do. Even something as simple as food or sex. Eating food can be done under a contraction. Eating food can also be done as an expansion. They're two completely different ways of eating food. Same as sex. You can use sex as a contraction or sex as an expansion. They're completely different ways of going about that. One, for an expansion, using sex as an expansion, most people aren't even going to know what the heck that means. That won't even enter into their sphere whatsoever. Most people are actually having sex in a contracted state. But those are just a couple examples. There's many things that we do. Our jobs, our relationships, for example. Like, the list just literally goes on and on and on. How many things can you count that you've done under a contraction? And once you know that, when you make a decision, let's say you want to make a decision to do some kind of a substance, and you ask yourself, there's two modes in existence. Either it's going to be a contraction or an expansion. When I'm doing this, which one of these categories am I falling into? Is this going to be a contraction? And if so, is that what you want? So it's extremely important to have a vision. You can call it a vision, or a paradigm, or a premise for your life. Everything has a premise, right down to games, movies, anything that in the entertainment industry, products, pretty much everything has a premise to it. And everything about that item or product or game or movie or whatever it is has to follow the premise, and does follow the premise. Whether it's a conscious premise or an unconscious premise, but there's always a premise or an overarching vision or direction. And mostly we're not aware of that. So now, given these two modes that things fall under, these would really be a really overarching premise for one's decision making or life. So if my overarching premise is expansion, then literally everything I do would fall under that. And if I have decided in my life, I want that to be my guiding principle, my navigational tool is expansion, then everything that I do has to fit within that. If not, you got to check. You got to double check. What am I doing? Do I have my premise in order? If I'm doing things that I notice that are contractions, behaviors that would fall under a contraction, then I know something about myself. I need to rebalance, recheck everything to see if it's actually fitting into my overarching premise, and do I have an overarching premise for the direction of life or choices. So that will be the checking system. Check yes for expansion, check no for contraction. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye for now.
The power of love. is here now. The power of now is here now. The power of you, me, is here to create magic on us.